To the Wednesday, March 27th meeting of the Pine Bluffs Town Council. Will everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is the agenda.
I move to amend the agenda to add item 4 on the consent agenda to be 24-hour daily alcoholic beverage sales permit for April 12th for Naughty Pine Saloon.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to amend the agenda to include an item number 4, 24-hour beverage permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd also like to make a motion to add, under new business as item 2, a moment of silence for Tom Moran.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to make the addition of item 2 under new business, a moment of silence for Tom Moran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
First item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. On to new business. Item number 1 is review current town contributions and requests from the Pine Bluffs Heritage Society.
Mayor and Council, have you had an opportunity to review the current town contribution document that was provided in your council packs? As you can see, annually, we contribute $11,800 to, that is between 3 different agencies in the town: the Senior Citizen Center, the Texas Trail Museum, and the Heritage Society. In-kind contributions, primarily facilities, leases, specifically to American Legion Post 60, the Sportsman Club, the Senior Center, and the Texas Trail Museum, and all of those facilities also include insurance coverage. I am proposing that we add to that a water, sewer, and garbage service fee forgiveness for the Heritage Society for the historic high school located at 607 Elm Street. The average for the past 12 months came out to a total of $1,421 for the year for all 3 of those services. While the utility forgiveness of electric services, I can't recommend that at this time, because I believe that would have to be covered under a new fee structure. And we currently don't have that fee structure in place for a nonprofit. We are, however, reviewing our rates. We have a rate study going on right now, and I believe that it is common for electric utility providers to have a category for nonprofits. Maybe Councilman Kraus can weigh in that for High West Energy. Do they have a not-for-profit fee schedule?
We do have a special rate for nonprofits.
So, and so that is definitely something that we could consider when we are updating the fee schedule, And then, of course, the Heritage Society would fall under that category.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to talk more about that piece of it at some other time. I think gets into a level of fairly high complexity in terms of, but
Absolutely, yes.
we can talk about that when it comes around. Are you here representing, would you like to speak on this issue?
I'm Esther Davison, if you are, and very short, apparently. I'm representing the Joint Powers Board, and I don't know how many of you are really familiar with how that all works, but in about 2001, the school district leased to the Heritage Society a 99-year lease or some such ridiculously long lease. I'm not sure of the length. But in 2010, they were approached with a possibility of getting a grant, which would allow them to do a whole lot of renovations in the school. And so the grant had to be only to an entity which was managed, whatever you want to call it, by a joint powers board. And the joint powers board must have two entities, from what I understand. My lawyer husband can straighten me out, but must have two entities which are government entities for it to be a joint powers board. And so the school district and the town agreed to create a joint powers board for the purpose of getting that grant so that they could, and it was over $1 million grant, to do a lot of work inside the school, and that's why the dome looks the way it does and all the work that they've done on the inside, and other renovations too. So far, the school has done pretty well at managing to support itself, but there have been some dramatic changes, and COVID is one of the reasons. Isn't that always the reason? Where LCCC, who used to contribute pretty large amounts for rent, has pulled way back and is only offering online classes there. I'm working really hard to get LCCC to do a little bit more there. In fact, I've talked to the school district, and since you guys are, as one person said to me, we're sort of the redheaded stepchild of the school district and the town of Pine Bluffs, because they have this joint powers board to which they appoint people. Because of the drawback of the LCCC and a couple other smaller leases, the high school's found itself in some pretty serious trouble. Of course, last year was very, very expensive to heat a building like that with the kind of cold and storms we had. It's better this year, but there's still pretty much of a deficit. So we thought that perhaps if you could take on the utilities, or whatever you call them, the sewer and the trash and the water, that would be an assistant. That would help. I'm looking for all sorts of other ways to help too, but that is our request, and in a way, you're like our parent, so we're asking for that. But
So-
any questions?
I have a question for you. How are efforts coming to lease space there?
Well-
and have you been actively doing that?
Yeah, most of the efforts to lease space have, the ones that were already leased are beginning to vanish. Pheasants Forever had a lease for a long time, and they've decided to not do that. As I said, the LCCC, this town did very well with a courtroom when you didn't have this building there. So those have all gone. Our attempts to lease are still generally connected with the school district, because it's so near and it's so convenient, and there are ways which we think we could help. So Todd Fornstrom and I spent some time yesterday talking with the school district about other leases that they could do. They already do some things for music and that kind of stuff. They need an art room. There's a few other things that the school district, that we might be able to manage to do. But again, the school district has diminished numbers. I don't know if you know this, but their population has gone down, and so their budget has gone down at the same time. I don't know. I'm still talking to LCCC about bringing more classes out. I'm taking suggestions for leases, basically. It's a good sound building. It'll probably outlive all of us here, because it's strong and in good shape, basically. So, I don't know, Justin. I don't know how to get more leases, but that's what we sort of need to get going so that we can pursue more leases.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave understands the situation. He's also one of those appointed members to the,
Yeah,
So,
I think you expressed it well though, Esther.
yeah.
Would you like to add anything to?
Not really. As Esther said, it's a challenge. Obviously, we all know we've got a facility that's sound, and it's certainly very serviceable. But it's competing with another facility in town that's newer and more modern and has some amenities. And I think a lot of times the historic high school gets forgotten about because of the location and because of so many events happening at, say, the community center. We are running at a deficit right now. It's not a huge deficit, and this would certainly help to balance those books, but the fact of the matter is we've got to find some more revenue in order to make this, sustainable. So.
Well, looking at it for me, one of the things I would suggest is that we don't leave ourselves, I mean, we do that in some spots, but based on the estimated cost, if we went, just barely over that, we could levelize our contribution to, I guess what I'm getting at is, if we took the 2,400 that we already pay and add 1,600 to it, all of a sudden we're very similar to, say, the museum. I mean, it was 1,400 and some dollars worth of utilities, and my point is in order for it to be a known for us what that is, my question is, Kim, you could correct me, but there's no inherent benefit to us to internally forgiving utilities versus, like, there's no taxation or anything like a typical business would deal with, so.
Correct.
Like actually doing the work where we get to put it in a definitive number that we know what the number is. I guess my question is whether we just give another $1,600 and continue on like we are, which is above the estimated utilities.
Sure. The benefit to the utilities is it's spread over 3 different departments, as opposed to just, the one.
Sure.
But it is a small dollar figure in the grand scheme of things, so.
I guess I would do it either way, or not do it, whatever everyone's pleasure is, but if somebody wants to make a motion, we could talk about it. But I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
it comes out of different departments, but.
Sure. And it's
It's
an,
also
it's an
more
in-kind
tracking.
contribution versus an actual cash contribution.
But you're also, yeah. Yeah, that's fine with me if that's what, I just don't want it to be, here's my thing. And this is my hope for the Heritage Society, right, is probably not as big a deal if it's electrical, if electrical's excluded as presented right here. My thing is if you did get it rented and all of a sudden you had revenue streams and you were doing well. I mean, I know that seems like a long ways off and unlikely and all of those things at this point, but let's assume you did that. You're gonna use more water, more electrical, therefore more sewer if you're using more water. I'm saying, as you would if things started to go better, all of a sudden this open-ended number is really open-ended. That would probably be a bigger problem on electrical than on these items, so I forgot that was my other thought about it. But anyway, I'm good doing just the forgiveness part but
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, I would make the motion to change the Pine Bluffs Heritage Society cash contribution to $4,000 annually.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to change the cash contribution to the Heritage Society to $4,000 annually. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2 is just taking a moment to recognize the passing of Tom Moran, former council member, former chief of police, and just well respected around our community and a huge part of our community for, 40 years, 50 years. So if we could just have a moment of silence for Tom, that'd be great. All right. Do we have visitor comments? No visitors. Department reports?
Got nothing.
We pretty much summed it up. Obviously, the Joint Powers Board has met recently. We met last Thursday, actually, and we discussed, the request for forgiveness of the utilities. We discussed current leases with the historic high school and some options to increase those leases. And I think we have still have some additional discussions to have, excuse me, with the school district and some creative ways to allow them to utilize the facility more and still work with their budget. So that, I can probably report on that more after we've continued those discussions. Yeah, I think we talked about the ways in which the school is used, and a lot of those are by the school district. Some of the events are the Honor Society meets there. There's a Christmas store, high school concert, elementary concert, FFA banquet, district music festival, kindergarten screening, and indoor track. Those are all important functions that, if we can find a way to to allow those to continue, but still support the requirements of the high school and meeting its obligations. That would be, I think it would benefit the entire community. Present more later.
Ally,
Nothing new for me.
Dennis?
The landfill has completed its shed structure that it put up for housing the equipment, and it's been wired and has power, and it's working out really well. The new cell has been permitted and is now ready to use. So things are going well at the landfill.
Great. Is it, the new building is just primarily to house and
It's a
Do
shed
they-
for the
they
equipment,
work on it?
basically, yeah.
It's
It's to give them
partially,
some shelter when they're working on them mostly. It's an open face, three-sided
really,
building, but it gives them some shelter from the wind and
you don't wanna fully trap trash equipment in a building? Is that the
probably
idea?
not, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
They're happy with it though. It's
Yeah.
working out well for them.
Alex?
I would defer to Kim, we have some news.
You can go for it.
Well, Kim and I managed to stay awake long enough at the industrial siting hearing for a couple of days to present what I thought was a pretty good case for unmitigated impact from the Cowboy Solar project. And some of you may know something about that, but we were awarded, well, we had asked for a little over $430,000 in impact reimbursement. That was a calculation that Kim did after reviewing the budget and looking at all the models that kind of address those issues. And they gave us every penny.
Wow.
So that'll come in on a monthly basis for 29 months once the project begins. And what is the monthly is like 14 grand and
14,856 per month for 29 months.
just short of 15,000 a month for 29 months.
Nice.
That's great.
And the head, Dr. somebody or other, of the industrial siting division of the DEQ made a special point of grabbing my attention, and she wanted me to tell what she had told Kim, I guess, and I didn't know that she thought that our witness had done a stellar job of presenting our case.
Wow.
Great.
And I agree, she did.
Well, that's awesome.
Good job, Kim. That was a good
Thank
sale.
And have we determined if those are earmarked dollars?
You know, we're working on that. There was no stipulation on how or whether we needed to specifically account for those funds. We did narrow the budget down to those particular areas that are likely to be impacted by additional people living here. But I haven't heard from the industrial siting division whether they have any accountability standards, but we're checking on that.
Great. Anything else?
Is that
Thank you. Austin?
I think Kim had sent some policies that I felt and have been trying to find since I got here. needed to be addressed. K-9 was, and well, most of these policies were either brought over from other agencies, picked between Laramie County, Torrington, closer agencies to us. Policies that we should have in place for a police department, and along with our insurance coverage as well, wants to have those in place. So I wrote them out. Again, it's more of a rough draft than in place, so if you guys have any changes, let me know. Just, they're kind of run-of-the-mill, what a police department should have. Most of them are the same, except for K-9, special duty, stuff like that. But, and the K-9 policy is Laramie County's. Cheyenne has the same policy, so I figured all three should be in line, so I wouldn't recommend changing that if you wanted to, but other than that, that's my reason for the policies and the flooding you with that, so apologize.
Well, I'll be honest, I'll be the first one to be honest, and maybe I'm the only one, but I haven't fully made it through all of it thus far, so.
It's a lot.
I don't have a lot of input, but, I'm happy that we're, like, if we were short some of those policies and it makes it, you know, either short or just updating or whatever the situation, I'm glad that we're looking into that. And, I don't know, but maybe someone's got some actual input. I don't find with some.
I managed to get through them, and I think you did a good job of pulling that information together. It looks, I wouldn't have guessed that we would be lacking, you know, that level of detail, but reading through it, it all seemed to make sense to me. Seemed pretty reasonable.
I was kind of surprised, and I know in talking to Chance when I was trying to find him, he thought that we had some, but we just couldn't find anything, so I just ended up kind of starting from scratch and just putting it together. So
I also read the whole thing,
So you guys are making me look bad.
maybe twice.
slack.
And I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
It was well-reasoned.
Like I said, I have a lot of resources to pull from, so I can't take all of the credit, but
It was all plagiarized.
what's that?
I said it was all plagiarized.
No, it's not all plagiarized, but
Just most of it.
but a lot of, you know, there's a lot of good agencies that I've leaned on as far as, you know, liking the way they do things, or you know, especially Wyoming, you know, specific stuff. Excuse me. How should we apply it, especially in the law's eyes? You know, what's good in Sidney, Nebraska, where I came from, probably doesn't apply here. So I had to balance, you know, some of that with pulled from Torrington and pulled from Cheyenne and Laramie County, and said, hey, can I look at your ordinances policies, and kind of picked and choose what we need and what we don't need, because we're not a big city, so.
I did have to look up OC. I didn't know what that was. It's basically the active ingredient in pepper spray.
Yes.
Something capsaicin.
Something you don't want in your eyes.
Yeah, it's something you don't want sprayed in your face.
Now you're just name dropping.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad enough you said you read it twice. Quoting specific passages with obscure details, but.
I'm here to report that wasn't in there anywhere.
Yeah.
No,
No, I didn't know what it was, so.
So, thank you.
Thanks.
Looking ahead though, I wanted to address the parking ordinances. I was going to get with Alex as well. I know that ordinance 2017-04 was going to be repealed. During what council meeting was that?
We initially discussed it in January,
Yeah.
where we talked about repealing that, which was the, it's specifically for RV parking, and then updating one of our other ordinances to be a little bit more specific when it came to intersections and alley entrances and things like that, so.
Sidewalk.
We're getting close to the RV season, so.
Yep. So I just wanted to kind of get a head start on that, just kind of put a bug in someone's ear and what we need to do. That way it was all done before that happens.
So, refresh my memory, we had all agreed to repeal it, but we were gonna
Fix.
It was
refocus
tabled
on
and
a
then
couple
we just never
of
got
other
back to it.
things, and then we tabled it because we're gonna simultaneously fix both, or?
Correct,
come
yes.
more? Okay.
The other thing, Alex had recommended breaking out the red and yellow paint and painting on intersections where visibility is an issue, that we can just paint the curb.
Yes.
And is there any, has that moved forward at all? Because I think that was
While
a
we
good
haven't started the
suggestion.
painting process yet, we have our rig in for a quick repair.
Okay.
And they're getting ready to do that when they restripe some of the lines
Okay.
throughout town.
But I think as far as what he's gonna have to encounter, it's gonna make his life much easier.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
That's a lot, but just to be clear, it's also a lot of, I
That's a
mean,
lot
that's a
of
tremendous amount of painting around
I
town.
agree it is.
Yeah, if you do every conceivable intersection, but there are some that are more active than others, or they don't have
Yeah, I
Or
can
more
stop
blind than
signs and
others.
that
see
kind of
that.
thing. So you can kind of hit the,
Let me ask you this,
I don't-
how much
I
in
don't
your,
think sorry, go ahead.
in your patrol around town, how much does it jump out at you that,
We have such
man,
wide
that
streets
person's
here
parked
that it's,
inappropriately, or?
it's not a big issue. It's very rare. We have such wide streets and especially during the weekend, a couple of guys that bring in their semis and into their house. I've addressed about, hey, where to park, and that way it mitigates some of that vision issue. Even if they have to face the wrong way, it's better that the motoring public has a better line of vision than them sticking out in the middle of nowhere, so. I've addressed those two issues that we've had, the rest of them are pretty good. But as far as even during the summertime last year, driving around with campers, I didn't really see a big issue. Even with the fire hydrants, I would say the fire hydrants would be the only thing I would recommend that we maybe paint. Just because if there is a fire and we have to forcibly move a vehicle, it's better to know they're in violation, than to have to break out a tape measure. The 15, that's recommended 15 feet, and everything, every state I've looked at is pretty much 15 feet. State of Wyoming's 15. Alley entrances they can say 15 to 10. I don't think we need to mark those, in yellow line. I don't think that's needed, because I don't think, again, there's very many issues we have in town. But fire hydrants, I would probably recommend restriping or repainting those, just so everyone's clear about where they can be and not be around those. So the fire department knows where they can act.
Well, I think that's a good one. I think most people know they're not supposed to park around fire hydrants. And if it comes up randomly on your test, we all took quite some time ago, there is a specific number, but I bet you 75% of the people couldn't tell you the specific number of feet that you need to stay back.
Yeah.
But they can tell you when it's painted, that you
Yeah.
shouldn't be there. So.
Yeah, the only other recommendation I had was I did find in our ordinances that it's kind of vague in there that you shouldn't block the sidewalk with an obstruction. But I think it'd be easy to add it into ordinance under a section 5 where it talks about blocking trees and vehicles from intersection traffic. Just add that into not blocking a sidewalk with trees and shrubs, and making sure that's all cut away, and as well as vehicles, so. But again, when you guys sit down to write that, I can give some pointers about what I've wrote down.
Okay,
But I just wanted to put the bug in the ear and make sure that we weren't trying to scramble to get it done later.
great.
Wanted to add, Chief Warren and all his years of service is the definition of public service, and someone I look up to when I was hired, so it's sad to hear of the passing, but we will be there to represent him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
I would like to provide you all an update on the East Lift Station. As you know, we've had one of our pumps out at that station for several months now. We've been operating on one pump, which, I mean, we just have no redundancy there. So it's an urgent matter whenever that thing is not functioning the way it should. And the two pumps we had there are grinder pumps, and since they've been installed, they have been nothing but an issue. The cost to replace the one grinder pump that has been out of commission would be about $15,000 just for the pump itself. Our guys could probably do the installation on it. We would need to do some modifying to get a replacement pump to fit in there. But one of the things that we've seriously considered is just going back to a standard pump with no grinder. There really is no reason to stress over having a grinder there. The grinder really is not for municipal use. It's really something more for a small commercial or residential use. So we're recommending that we replace both pumps with non-grinder pumps. And the cost for the pumps themselves, for both of them, will be a little bit more, not much more than the cost of one grinder pump. So the pumps themselves won't. However, we would need to have Town and Country assist us with the installation. So for the two new pumps plus the installation, we'd be looking at approximately $22,000. So that has been our plan to move forward with that. And then this summer, we will come to you with a proposal to put in some type of a trap where it can catch any solids that would be too large to go down our force main. That would not be the norm, so it's nothing that we're panicking about now, but if the RV park really gets rolling, then we would need that. As opposed to a screen, we're looking at putting in basically two pits, one that has a pipe higher at one side and lower at the other, so that the stuff that should be flowing is still flowing, but anything large or heavy will stay in the one tank, and we'll be able to pump that out with our Vactron. So again, just be aware that that's going on. You know, the East Lift Station doesn't service a lot of facilities, but once that RV park gets rolling in the summer months, it does get a bit more active over there. Our electric and water meters are all maintained electronically through an application called Command Center. Landis & Gear is migrating all of Command Center data and processes to a new application, and that migration is scheduled to happen next week. We don't anticipate any interruption to our administrative services or public works metering services, and it definitely will not impact residents at all. just be aware that we are making that migration, so, we'll just keep an eye on things, and we've got our IT support from High West, Lincoln Brown will be there for the migration as well, in case we have any issues. The North Property pre-bid meeting will be next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Just so that you're all aware, we hope to have a good turnout. The meeting will be here in this building. And on the treasurer's side of the house, we're getting into budget season, so we'll be meeting with department heads next month during the month of April, and we need to have 3 budget readings. The first 2 will be the 2 meetings during the month of May. The third and final reading will be the first meeting that we hold in June. My question to all of you is, would you like to participate in some budget workshop for the council?
Yeah.
And if so, I'll just send out emails, and we can, we can work individually or in pairs, or whatever works most convenient for you all, or we could just stay maybe early or late at one of the council
I
meetings.
don't mind noticing a meeting if everyone wants to do it collectively, but,
Yes, we would have to publicly
That's-
post that meeting if we have a
otherwise we
workshop.
need to do it 2 at a time,
Yes,
which requires
Yep.
3 meetings.
but if it's most convenient for everybody, we could, like I said, just stay a little bit late after one of the April council meetings and go through a workshop at that time.
Whatever
So-
works for you.
Keep that all in mind. And then I also was curious if anybody had any input on the job description that was provided. If so, if you could get back with me through email, or just get with me after the meeting, if you'd like to see, or if you have any questions or would like to see anything added or changed on that job description. And if I could also get maybe a status update on our airport lease agreement. That was a request from Kevin.
Yeah, they have it.
Oh, they have it
so,
now?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're waiting to hear back.
I
super.
think they still,
They don't like it.
and I think there's some problem. I think there's a few, like a nuanced part of it that we could talk about, but I'm also concerned that we're far enough apart on what they like and what's commonplace, that I'm concerned about that, but I think we should. One thing I liked about the other example lease we had was it was not definitive that the only option at the end of the full period was relinquishing the property.
Well, have them give us a
I mean,
call, and,
But I think either way, you're still depending on a council 50 years from now to either be positive or negative towards the specific issue.
Yeah.
And the example we have from Uinta County is exactly that. It adds another option whereby if all parties agree at the end of the lease term, we can start all over, we can do whatever we want. Which is a great option, but it's of no security to the person leasing the property.
I understand that. Ground leases are always tricky. And this one, I mean, essentially, airport leases from the viewpoint of the FAA fall into one of 2 categories. They're either inside the fence leases or outside the fence leases. If they're inside the fence leases, the regulatory overburden for those things increases.
Sure.
The standard guidance from the FAA is you look at GAAP, you look at the depreciation time for the installation, and you don't take a lease any longer than that. That's not something I made up out of thin air. So that's where the 40 years came from, because the depreciation rate for those buildings is 39 years. I mean, is it gonna matter? Who knows? But one thing we don't wanna do is jeopardize our compliance with the grant assurances that the FAA has,
Sure.
because that's how we get our money to do things there. So it's not, I mean, it is a business transaction and an arm's length transaction, but, those are things that we really need to pay attention to.
And I don't disagree with that. I just think there should be, I mean, you could always fix it at the end. Once again, I'm saying it's of no guarantee to the person leasing the property either way. But, you know, I think at best you put the option in there that, you know, take your chances with the current council at the end of 40 years. Like that's basically what
Well, they
the
can
other
always
example
renew it.
said.
Well,
Yeah,
The thing that I heard that they were having issue with is they read it as it absolutely terminates at the end of the 39 years with no option of continuation. And they wanted to see an option of continuation of the lease rather than it terminated and all of the property defaulted to the town. That was what they had
So-
issue with.
so I think that's what I'm saying. But the option would be contingent on the people who are sitting in this room on that day,
Yeah.
whether that's extended. It takes away the definitive part where it absolutely is done on that day. But I don't think it helps on the other side in terms of, and I liked your point. It's hard for me to quite, you know, you have to do a lot of fancy math to see whether this actually works out. But I think either directly in the email or as a follow-up response, Alex pointed out that technically, usually the land lease agreements is discounted to account for the price of the building, where effectively the airport owner, whether it be the town of Pine Bluffs or anyone else, has effectively paid you for that building over 40 years. I think, am I misspeaking?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, there are a number of variable factors that weigh in on that. I mean, one is what the FAA, I mean, it seems to me that it's really hard getting straight answers out of those guys in Denver at the FSDO, but it's sort of, from what we can piece together on the Cheyenne leases like this, is one of the things they're concerned about is somebody coming in, building them, getting a long-term lease, and then boom, selling the thing and making money on it. Because essentially what they're doing is they're making money on the airport land. So it seems like if you have a restraint on alienation in the lease, like this thing's not assignable, it's yours and it's nobody else's, that makes a difference. The problem is you get a 60-year lease or a 40-year with a 24 5s to add onto it.
Right.
Nobody's gonna be alive. So they don't even believe that you're serious about it.
Right.
And that's where that depreciation factor comes in. Now, they won't tell us no. And we can do what we want. I'm just telling you
No,
kind
I
of
get
the
what you're
flavor
saying.
of how that works.
That makes
But I
sense.
do think we can, I mean, if that's their point, we can address that point, but I think it's going to look like this option's potentially available to you. But it's not under, so the original 40 years is under a really pre-specified escalation rider and all of that. And I think even the other, and I've only ever read the one other example, but that's all out the window. Like, they also have this escalation rider, but under their renewal terms, which can continue on for a longer period, you're renegotiating a lease like it's the first time, so that, like, the escalators, all of that are out the window. Like, the city or town is welcome to raise the price by double for the land lease.
I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I've heard nothing from anyone but Kevin. And I do not have the Evanston lease.
Oh,
I don't have
Okay.
any of that information. Nobody has contacted me. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to
Sure.
anybody about it, except Kevin. I sent it to Kevin. He's handled it from there. I've
Okay.
gotten no feedback.
well, you know what we need to do is to get together with the parties involved and then figure out their exact concerns, and we just talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they need to
Like-
tell me what the problem
Right.
is, so that I know.
Okay,
From what I heard, if we had a duplicate of the Evanston lease, they'd have been happy
so
with
that's,
that.
so that's my point, it's basically one quick change,
Yeah.
and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it before I
Yeah.
say that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Yeah,
I
no,
get
for
that.
sure.
And I haven't seen it either, but
Kim, do you have
But
a
I
scanned
just got
copy
that
of that,
through
or?
the-
I'm, let me look.
Mine's in a printed form, so I don't know for sure.
And I know nothing about
Sure,
propriety of what they're doing.
I can't remember whether I got it in a electronic document or, but I agree with you, we could just all get up to speed and see if it's workable. Well, Kim, anything else? We kind of went down a rabbit hole.
yeah, we did.
Sure. I also just want to let you all know that the county commissioners meeting on April 2nd at 3:30, they will be voting to approve the creation of a new precinct for the town of Pine Bluffs. That new precinct is going to be necessary for the county to properly administer our town elections in November. And so just letting you know that that's going to be happening.
Well, for my department report, I would like to make a proclamation. So, here we go. Whereas children are our future, no child should suffer abuse and neglect, and whereas victims of child abuse and neglect are known to be at higher risk for experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, low academic achievement, drug use, juvenile delinquency, teenage pregnancy, and adult criminality, every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment free of harmful effects of abuse and neglect. And whereas an estimated 800 children in Wyoming are victims of abuse and neglect each year, and whereas effective child abuse intervention and community prevention programs succeed because partnerships created among community members, social services, and law enforcement agencies, schools, churches, businesses, and civic organizations. And whereas each April, Child Advocacy Centers of Wyoming, the Children's Trust Fund Board, Prevent Child Abuse Wyoming, Wyoming Citizen Review Panel, the Wyoming Department of Family Services, the Wyoming Office of Attorney General, Division of Victim Services, the Wyoming GAL program, the Town of Pine Bluffs, and other partners join in an effort to prevent abuse and neglect through outreach, education, and intervention. Now therefore I, Justin Fornstrom, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of Pine Bluffs, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month.
Thanks.
Very good.
All right. Announcements and meetings.
Just a reminder, if you plan on attending the quarterly elected officials meeting, the RSVP is due April 3rd. The dinner itself is April 17th. The next council meeting is April 8th at 6 p.m. And cleanup week starts on Monday, April 22nd.
Great.
Thank you.
Is it on the 17th?
I had it as the 10th,
That doesn't sound right.
so maybe I have it incorrect.
Yeah, I have it on the 17th.
I was going to be a week early.
I'm gonna be sitting there. Does anybody have anything else before that? No?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.